Yeah, Bobby Honky.
It is 9:30. It's still 9:30. And this is the Board of Richland County Commissioners. I'm Darrell Banks, Commissioner. I'm with my fellow commissioners, Tony Vero and Cliff. Stacy Crawl, our clerk, is here. Matt Finfengild and Jane Zimmerman are here from the Board of Elections. And Aaron Ringler.
Joe Ringler.
Joe. Okay.
Your parents like better.
Probably my youngest brother.
And also the media in Al Lawrence News Journal, Carl Hunnell, Richland Source is here. I don't think there's anyone else, is there? Okay. And our first point of business is the Board of Elections. And I'll let you guys take it away.
All right. Well, we did get the quote back from Triad.
It came in cheaper, right?
I gave it, absolutely.
Give us like between 0 and 100,000.
It's in the higher than 100,000. So, the bottom packet is a quote from Triad. The quote came in at 89,940. So that would be the initial upfront cost. The annual fees would be 22,650. And then that top paper I gave you, that is what our annual fees have currently been with ES&S VR, which is who we currently have. So you can see this year, the annual fee was a $29,429.49 plus a $1,200. So the annual fee was about $30,600. The year before that, it was $187, $396, and $1,200. So the annual fee there was what, $29,700 roughly. So you can see their annual fee up every year. I think you can see that on the history there. We would be saving about $8,000 a year based on what the fees were this year versus what Triad's annual fees will be.
Now, how long Triad's fees will last to 22,000?
I do not, but when Jose was here, he's been here 20 years with Triad, and they've only increased their fees 3 times. It's not a yearly thing like who we're currently with. They just raise them every year. You can see the history on it. So, I mean, when you're saving $8,000 a year, if we had it 10 years, 11 years, that pays for the initial cost if the difference stays, which
15-year ROI.
Not to mention the manpower with the public service
Right.
requests. I mean, it takes us sometimes a day to get some of these things done, where the public will be able just to go on and look it up themselves.
and I did ask for 100,000 in my mid-year budget request put in. So I kind of had this built in already.
That's just a request.
Right. I understand that, Commissioner Vero.
Okay, so there's an ROI eventually, right, Darrell? So the question, and I think this is a no-brainer. I think obviously we got to do it, and there's an ROI on it. So the question is, how do we do it? You pay the upfront out of capital, the annual in the general, right? And that's what it is. Well, unless you put all of it in the general fund. I guess we could leave it all in the general fund now for 2022. And then when we get down to that 23rd hour and 59th minute, we could always move it. Or well, you'd need to pay for it now. So.
No, there won't be any money paid until January or February
Okay.
22. I mean, we would enter into it and Triad would start some of the conversion, but we wouldn't go live until the first of the year. And I think from what Jose said, that's when we would pay.
Yeah, Did say that.
Just leave it in the general fund.
You put the $100,000 request in your general fund
Mid-year.
elections
It
mid-year.
could come down to 89 or 90. So what do you think, Cliff? Just leave it in the general fund, knowing we could move it to capital?
I think. Why don't you make a motion to that effect?
Motion to approve contract with Triad, effective, what, January 2022? Or do you want to be effective? I mean, we'll just say effective immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we'll be having to use a lot of data.
right.
Second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Mears.
Yes. Any questions from the media while Jane and Matt are still here?
Yeah, what was the price, the 80-some thousand?
It's 89,400.
And your current company is who again?
The ES&S VR.
What was that again? ES?
ESS VR.
It's election systems and software out of Nebraska.
Okay, that's all the questions I had.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Great,
Thank you, guys.
I like that.
Cool system.
Anything you wanna,
Thank you for showing it to me.
Yeah, it is. It's very nice.
It is nice.
Can't wait to get them moving now.
sorry,
I just had
Yeah.
one thing to say.
Come on up, man.
come up here
Come on
so
up.
they can hear you. Thank you.
Thank
See you guys.
No, I just wanted to officially express my gratitude for making the agriculture and natural resources educator position over the extension office available. Been meaning to do it a while ago, but just starting to get in the office and stuff. So that's really all I'm here to do, is just to thank you for making the position available, and I look forward to serving the county as best I can.
Yeah, glad you're on board and you can make this pay for the people of Richland County.
If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I should have brought my business card, but maybe
I know how to get hold of you.
I'm in the extension office, this fall.
How many hours a week you working over there now? So what does that equate to?
It's a 40-hour, it's a salary position, but 40 hours is what we required. Quite often, folks in my position work more than that, but that's what I'm doing right now.
Welcome. Your family's reputation, your reputation is excellent in the community, particularly in the rural area. We all know that. So it's a great hire. You know where to find us. You need anything. We're happy to have you.
All right,
Thanks for taking the time to stop out.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
it's my pleasure, and you guys have a good day. So.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, be well, bud.
Okay, we have a few minutes here. Let's do some of the other end. So certifying the record of proceedings.
So moved.
And second?
Commissioner Banks.
Yes,
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
and on the 15th, and I think that when you weren't here, Tony.
I'll have to abstain, but I'll make the motion.
Making the motion?
Yeah, when I vote, I'll abstain.
All right, second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Abstain?
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Hey, can we get approval of the requisitions?
So moved.
And second?
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
And we we get approval to have membership in the LEC.
So move with the understanding that Cliff has to memorize every member we appoint as part of new commissioner training and take a quiz on it.
Can I vote on this if I'm part of this? I can't. I'll second it to begin with.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
What is LEPC?
Local Emergency Planning Committee. You want to be on it? You can, in the middle of
Negative.
a disaster.
Negative.
Oh, Carl.
Well, he was quick to say no.
Boy, he was.
I want to point out that they do require a media representative.
I nominate
Well,
Al
it's-
Lawrence.
No, I'm already on the Ashland County LEPC.
That was before all you guys became fake news. So we're gonna have to fix that.
I'd be silent too. Okay, then we have Silent Watch 2021, and they've asked to locate on our front yard.
They've done this in the past, right, Stacy?
This is their second time, yeah.
So moved.
And second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Who are the organizers behind the Silent Watch?
Michelle Hawks is who this came from. And
She's with Master Sergeant Tim Chandler, now retired from the Air Base.
I don't
What
know.
is it? I'm sorry.
I don't know if it's a group or just individuals.
Okay, and what exactly are they asking to do and from what time on that date?
okay, from 7 a.m., it's on September the 11th, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. They will have, they're going to have an empty casket with a flag draped over it and have pictures on top of that and have someone silently standing guard for 15 to 20-minute increments throughout the duration of the day. And
Bring attention to suicide.
they're trying to bring attention to suicide of our first responders and military people.
Thank you.
Okay, then we have, okay, we would like to accept the retirement letter from JFS employee. It's been with us a long time, 31 years, I think.
So moved.
And second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Okay. Mr. Hamilton, on behalf of the land bank, has asked for $25,000. The price of the vehicle they want to purchase a vehicle which will be paid from the delinquent real estate tax fund or the land bank.
Yeah, the land bank's paying for this. This is the way to effectuate the purchase. So there's no monies out of the general fund. So moved.
Second. You got a good deal.
And I talked to Bart and he's looking at SUVs versus pickup trucks because he said we don't really use the pickup truck.
Yeah, yeah.
And the truck we have now has no air condition. I mean, we got our money's worth out of that truck. We told him to just roll the windows down or, when it rains, the rain could come in and, but it's time.
Yeah, it's a used car.
Okay,
Commissioner Banks,
yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
And we need approval, notice of intent to request release of funds for the CDBG.
So moved.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Okay, does anyone have any other? Any questions from the media? Okay, we will adjourn until 10 a.m. And we'll recess.
Recessing.
It is 10 a.m. and on the 20th of July, we are back in session. And joining us is Bob Bianchi, engineer for the city of Mansfield. And what would you like, Mr. Bianchi?
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. So just,
Yep, that's fine.
you have this document here? Okay. So this actually has been brought before you once before, I think a few months ago. The city is conducting a project whereby we would replace 900 feet of a major culvert that's under 3rd Street, right behind Jobs and Family Services. It runs along the south side of 3rd. It's tough to know that culvert exists based off the lay of the land, but believe me, it's under there and it's gone through some years of deterioration. So you'll see those plates in that photo. Those plates are covering holes that have developed in the top of the culvert, and those plates are along 3rd Street. So we need to replace this culvert, and consequently, we need some property from the landowners. Most of it's temporary. So whenever we work and do these kinds of projects, and when we find ourselves needing to be on private property, we need to obtain what's called a temporary right-of-way acquisition. It's very small amounts, strips of land, and temporary right-of-way is only obtained throughout the duration of the project. That is, it just basically allows the contractor to have access to the property. Once the project's over, it just goes back to how it always has been, owned by the commissioners. 0.182 acres of temporary right-of-way. And then there's one very small section of permanent right-of-way, 0.02 acres. That is near the inlet of the culvert where Ritter's Run is. You see that arrow of Ritter's Run right there. And that allows us to have future maintenance. That means we won't be entering onto county commissioner's property. We would own that property as a permanent right-of-way. It's only 800 square feet about. So you guys have been submitted right-of-way acquisition paperwork, both for the temporary and the permanent. It's simply up to the board to whether they would donate the property to Mansfield for this project, or the city would then, if not donation, we would then pay the county for the property. I think up to about $2,600. So,
$2,650 altogether. Yep, all of them.
city would very much appreciate a donation. However, that is solely of course, the Board of Commissioners' decision.
Tony and I think you and me and Chuck went down and looked at this. And you're right, you wouldn't know it was there, but it's in terrible shape.
Yeah.
And I'm sure once it's deteriorated this bad, it's going to deteriorate quickly.
Yes.
So how soon are you planning on starting?
So that's a good question. We are currently looking at maybe an OPWC project. We've got 2 things on the docket. But we don't want to submit 2 applications. We'll submit 1. So if we submit 1 this year for this project, we would start next year. We may end up submitting it for the following round of OPWC. So then it would be the following year. So really, it could either we start next year or the year after. What would be the preference of the commissioners?
Start next year.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So I would propose we give it to you. As long as you start next year. What were you going to say?
Well, because you made a motion on June 1st to the opposite. If the board can change, because on June 1st, we approved the paperwork having Mansfield pay us for those easements and right of ways.
So we have to.
You would have to rescind that and then make another motion to donate it. And then I have to get hold of the
Well, look, this is in the spirit of good
property.
partnership. I'm sure the city would reciprocate in time. It's 2/1000ths of an acre, so it's not like we're going to be using this anytime soon. Bobby does a good job. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to do that. So at this time, I'd make a motion to rescind our prior action and in turn donate said 2/1000ths of an acre to our friends,
200 today.
thousands, 02. Yeah, so it's, oh, you're
270.
200ths of an acre. Good grief. Math. Apologies to our friends in the media out there. 200ths of an acre. Known as Ritter's Run to our friends at the city of Mansfield.
I will second that.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Any questions from the news media?
Yeah, hey, Bob, how big an overall project is this if you're looking to get an OPWC grant for it? How much money are you anticipating this whole project will cost?
3.5 million is the total construction cost. Very large culvert. The culvert's about 15 foot wide and about 8 feet deep. So 15 feet wide. Yeah. And it goes from Ritter's Run entrance, 900 feet east to Junction Street. So long.
How old would you anticipate this thing is?
There had been probably 100 years. There had been repairs to it intermittently, but the base of it is over 100 years old. But there have been some wall replacements and cap replacements intermittently throughout the culvert.
What's it made out of right now, Bob?
Precast concrete with a brick base. So the invert of the culvert, the bottom of the culvert is brick, and these 3 sides are concrete.
And this is something you, at some point, you anticipate taking to city council then to get approval for, or they already approved it?
They've approved the design, so the project is fully designed and ready to build. And they will then, in turn, after the commissioners and other property owners agree to property acquisition, they will approve that on our end. And then ultimately it'll go to city council for approval to spend the dollars and build the project. But they are.
Of the 3.5 million, how much of that do you hope to get through the state?
400 to 500,000. You can't exceed 500,000 on the OPWC grant.
Thank you, sir. I'll see you this evening.
You better pack a lunch, Carl, or popcorn.
Oh, I've looked at the agenda, and the dry dam conversation alone should be interesting.
Well, we'll see you till 1 a.m.
Anything else? We will stand adjourned till
Yes.
recess until 11 a.m. There's a lot of water, doesn't it?
It does.
Is there any area in there that's
Leave at 11:30.
We'll be here till 3, so.
She'll be leaving at 11:30.
Well, we'll get started so that you can get out of here before 3. 11 a.m. and we are back in session. We have been joined by our prosecutor, his financial.
It looks like
Carl seems to be with us. We're not sure about Al.
Nope.
He is, okay.
I find Gary that exciting.
Carl and Al are still with us. Oh, you have some funding issue to discuss with us? What's an additional? Better word.
I don't know. I guess it comes under the heading of additional. You'll recall that I, all of you back in April, asking for essentially 3 things. A second investigator, help with our ELCA shortfall, and another. At that time, I was asking for, I think, 2 attorneys, would be law school graduates essentially, that would help with intake. I've been persuaded by both judges that that's the wrong approach, and I totally agree with them. I don't need more fresh out of law school, inexperienced intake level prosecutors. I need another experienced prosecutor, an experienced trial attorney. At the time of that drafting, we had approximately 541, 520 intake cases that had yet to be addressed. We're up to 560 now. And that we've processed some of those original 520. They just keep coming. So the number's grown. We currently have 1,530 cases. Now that's everything from intake to pretrial status to trial status to cases that are ready to close, to even 3 periodic review cases.
Is everything pending?
That's everything pending. That works out to an average of 237 cases per prosecutor, as I have 6 criminal prosecutors handling that workload. And yes, that doesn't include the first assistant. The first assistant handles every one of those cases. She has to review every case that comes in. She does just like Brent Robinson used to do. He used to take the cases home with him at night or on the weekend and review them. Well, she's doing the same thing, only by computer. But it's still the same amount of time. She also manages an active trial docket still. As much as I've tried to get her away from that, she's still co-counsel. She's co-counseling the Lexington murder, I believe. She's getting ready to co-counsel the Wheatcraft murder that we're getting ready to present this week. She still maintains a trial load on top of all those responsibilities. And that's not including her administrative responsibilities and so forth. And then myself, I'm still doing some trials. I don't do as many as I used to. Obviously, I can't. I have the time. So it basically falls on those 6 assistants, and they average about 237 cases each. One of my assistants, Matt Metcalf, took 2 weeks maternity leave. He could have taken 12 weeks. Took 2. Since he's been back for 2 weeks, he's 50 cases behind. 50 cases that are sub rosa. Nobody's been arrested. No formal charge has been filed. So speedy trial is not a concern. But he literally can't get to those cases. He's got a trial this week, and he's got preliminary hearings on Thursday that he's trying to get ready for, in addition to getting ready for a trial. Those are the bright orange files. Those need immediate attention because somebody's been charged or arrested or whatever. So those manila files, he can't even get to them yet. They're sitting there. He doesn't have time. He's being held in court. As I've said before, we're in court 5 days a week. Terry Burnside was second up for trial today. Turns out Emily Hall went to trial ahead of her instead. But right up until yesterday afternoon, around 3 o'clock, she was in court all day and had a trial scheduled for today. And we got by just by quirk because the court literally said, if Emily Hall's case comes in Tuesday morning and pleads guilty at 9 a.m., we want the next case ready to go. She had to have that case ready too. These guys are being stretched to the point where they can't put in the quality of work that they're capable of. I've told you before, the state public defender guidelines are that they not take more than 125 cases per year so that they're competent to represent their clients. We're averaging 237 apiece right now.
What's the standard?
Well, if there is a standard, the only thing we can go by is what the state public defender,
And what they recommend?
125.
125.
So
What's your solution to all the,
my solution is not a total solution. It's just asking for some relief. I was just going to say, you take the 1,530 cases we have. We even subtracted 136 of those cases because they're ready to close. We can still come up with 1,426 divided by 6. That's 237 each average. If you do the math, you take that 1,426 and divide it by 7, obviously the average number goes down, spreads out the workload more. I don't want to sound cliche, but this is the 21st century. We need to upgrade. We need to expand. I know you guys have talked in the past about you've got as many or more employees working there now as you've historically ever had. That's not the measure. Measure is, are we keeping up? Are we being able to not fly by the seat of our pants? Olivia just spent over a week in trial on a felonious assault case and to fly the victim back from Texas.
So are the number of cases, and I guess this goes back to the number of crimes, going up?
Yes,
The trend is far more crimes than there used to be that are going to court?
the trend is far more crimes than there used to be. It's interesting to me because from my perception, the population of Mansfield is somewhat stagnant. I guess it's those kids that have grown up and become back to the total lack of effective administration at the juvenile division.
Help me understand the risk here because I'm not a lawyer type. Is there a chance of penalty or a higher authority coming down and saying, you're taking too long? People are guaranteed a speedy trial and justice delayed is justice denied. Are we in risk of any of those kinds of?
We're already facing that. We already have cases pending on appeal where we're accused of violating the defendant's right to a speedy trial. I just approved a brief for the Supreme Court yesterday on a speedy trial appeal. The Supreme Court manages the caseloads through the court. The court has to file a report. I think it's every 6 months or whatever, or once a month maybe. I think it used to be once a month when I was a law clerk. They have to file a report with the Supreme Court and list all their overdue cases. And they can be sanctioned for having cases overdue. That's why the court.
I guess that's what I was looking for, a sanction.
Yeah.
Because.
And you used to, back in the day, you got a plaque at the end of the year from the Supreme Court if all your cases were kept up. I don't think they give out plaques anymore. I'm not sure, but there is a sanction. I think if they don't, they have to report monthly.
But you're not on the candidate list right now for that if they did it right.
No. And that's why the court pushes us so hard. We complain all the time that the courts treat us like stepchildren. They don't care about how much work we have to do to get a case ready for trial. They just want that case disposed of. they don't care about how many times a day we have to be in court. I mean, it's getting to the point where you can't meet with witnesses, you can't meet with victims, you can't cases with police officers, you can't prep for trial because you're in court every day. Just like Terry yesterday, she's literally in court all day, and it was going to be expected to be ready to go to trial this morning. Had it not been for Emily's case going ahead of her, she would have had to go to trial today on the case that she missed a day of preparation on. And we're we're to the point where we're flying by the seat of our pants constantly. Not doing the kind of work we're capable of. So getting the time to prepare and serve victims the way we should. Now, what I've said, I think, to a couple of you is that my original proposal, I'm not interested in getting 2 new intake prosecutors anymore. I'm convinced, like the judges said, that that's not the way to go. I also asked for an investigator because I could use an extra investigator right now full time just to help us prepare for the death penalty case that's currently scheduled for April of 2022. Right now, we're meeting once a week on that case. The trial's not until April of 2022, and we've got so much work to do that we've already started. We're meeting every Thursday to keep abreast of what we need to do in that case. In addition to that, I need an investigator that can go out and actually interview witnesses, somebody who's qualified to do that. Not necessarily perpetrators. Leave the police detectives to do that. Maybe not even the victims, but we need to interview neighbors and witnesses and other people that are tied to a case that they don't have time to do. Now, having said all that, I'm ready to withdraw that request because I know that's reaching for the moon. We are sending Allison Young, our current investigator, to OPATA training. She starts August. She'll be going through that training from August through February, and hopefully she completes that and she'll become OPATA certified. She can start to do more then once she gets her OPATA certification. But the thing you have to remember is she's full with our drug cases. She's screening and prepping all our drug cases. So she's going to be limited. Right now, what she does a lot when she's not working the drug cases is go out and try to find people. It's amazing how many people we have that we just literally can't find. The police don't get a good address. They don't get a working phone number. Victims lie to us. They disappear. And we spend as much time trying to hunt down and find witnesses as we do prepping them. So she's full with that. Now, we're getting ready. And I hesitate to say this with the news media listening, but we do sweep cases with Metridge Drug Enforcement every year. We have that coming up. I won't say when exactly, for obvious reasons. But normally when they give us those cases, it takes us about 2 months to get them ready and get them prepped and do all the follow-up and get them ready to present to the grand jury. It's taken us 8 months this time, and it's not because of COVID, it's because of our workload. Getting ready to do 80 cases. That's dumping 80 cases into the docket in addition to the regular pace that goes on anyway. I'm also, when I leave this meeting, getting ready to meet and try to form a task force. It's going to involve the sheriff. It's going to involve the police department. It's going to involve Avita. It's going to involve Ohio Health. It's going to involve Metridge Crime Lab, Metridge Drug Enforcement. Invited Tony Tambasco from the Crime Lab. He's unavailable, but we'll get him on board later. And we've got to address the problem of children, and I'm talking infants like 6 months old, turning up with drugs in their system. If we had 1 or 2 cases like that, we wouldn't need a task force. But this year, so far they've tested, I believe, 45 children, 6 months, 18 months, 2 years old, and 20 of those have had oxycodone, methamphetamine, and even fentanyl in their system.
How?
Numbers are staggering.
How did they get
When
that?
I first heard about it.
It's the parents? Giving them this stuff?
Well, that's why we need a task force to find out what's happening. To find out what the root cause of this is.
So what is the formal ask and the formal cost? It sounds like you're saying, look, I'd like this, but I understand money's being as they are. I'm still trying to understand what is now the revised formal request
Experienced criminal trial attorney.
and the VOCA. So what's that cost?
Well, I think the last number we had for the VOCA, which is currently, and understand this is just because their fiscal year is different than ours. We're currently $5,569 in the red, but that's not alarming because we still have more grant money coming from VOCA for this year.
Right.
I think Audrey will tell you we've got two $7,000 allowances coming, as well as two $1,700 for the SBA grant. And then we've got some leftover VOCA money in old grants that we're going to throw in there to the tune of 12,000. So we're going to be tight come September, but it looks like we're going to be okay at least until then.
What about for next year?
That's where the problem's
So
going.
starting October 1st,
Yeah.
you're gonna need funds.
You'll need funds for the remainder of this year, and then you're gonna need additional funds unless the VOCA allotment changes,
We
which it
don't
could.
need much for this year.
Okay, but what's the amount for the end of this year? And then what's the amount for next year?
Next year, I'd say 100,000
Conditional.
total. So that department needs about 162,000 to run, and that is just salaries and the
What's
Medicare.
the
And
extra amount?
what do you mean the extra? 100.
We
Around 30.
So additional, I'm sorry. So 100 minus 30, 60.
100
I'm sorry, 70, 70.
need 70,000 additional dollars
Yes. So that
just to
grant
maintain.
cut back
Yeah.
to 55,000 was the max we can apply for. And 162 is what it needs to run.
During 2022.
October, yes. Their great year runs October to September.
I'm told that the federal government is working on a fix. They are trying to come up with a way to restructure the funding for that program statewide. Recently, I believe they passed legislation that's going to help fund the rape crisis centers and the domestic violence shelters, but they have not addressed the prosecutor's office yet. And I'm told they're working on that, but I'm also told that whatever fix they come up with probably won't be implemented until 2023.
For that end of it, you need probably $70,000.
That includes everything, fringes, Medicare, that's,
That's all we give them. They get $1,000 a year for equipment.
and what do you want to pay the new prosecutor?
Well, the short answer is whatever I have to get somebody qualified. I guess the long answer is depending on experience. I want somebody with at least 6 years experience. And to get into somebody with 6 years experience, you're looking somewhere in the 60,000 range.
Let's even say.
60,000?
Even
With 6 years?
Out in the mid to high 40s.
So let's even say 65, you throw another 30 grand in for fringes, it's probably about 95.
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah.
So you're asking for 165,000.
If I can find somebody with 6 years experience, what I'd like to find is somebody with 10 years experience. It's on the table.
And what's that?
She's asking if we have staff currently that we may have to let go in order to restructure and turn our focus to more experienced attorneys. And I'm saying that possibility is on the table.
I guess that's for you. It's not my place to make your personnel decisions. Obviously, that would impact the dollars.
That's why I bring it up.
All right, so look, obviously the administration of justice is extremely important. So that's why we've been pouring through this. But also it's a matter of what you can afford and what you can't afford. So you're balancing the two. I'm willing to compromise and say, okay, this is my position. So then the other two will say, I'm willing to make up the VOCA gap. I think the 165,000 is a lot considering we have $5 million. I mean, we had $44 million in requests at mid-year.
Yes, we did.
Now that's not uncommon, but we know we're gonna have to cut. And it's always tight to pass a balanced budget. So we'd already be committing to an additional $70,000 with the understanding that if and when VOCA is restored, that money would come back to the general fund.
Absolutely.
But I'm willing to split the difference and say I'm okay. So my vote as one of three would be to I will accept the VOCA grant increase. That would be my position.
Well, it sounds like to me, additional personnel, I don't know how we'd pay for it, but it also sounds like he needs it.
We desperately need it. I can't emphasize enough how we are barely treading water on our case management. We've got people that have today, domestic violence, 2 priors, but uncounseled, so we can't use the priors. The woman's pregnant, so we can use that to make it a felony. We can't find her. She's not cooperating. We're looking at possibly having to plea bargain that case because we can't put the time into it to find her and sit her down and work with her, gain her support and her cooperation. Give this case the kind of attention it needs. There's just too many of those. How can you do that when you get a trial on Tuesday that you got to?
Another way I guess, unless you guys are okay with both, it doesn't matter. Just $165,000. We're adding $165,000 on the budget. We know we're gonna have to cut. And we already had the Board of Elections today. Now there's some room in the capital projects, but we just keep adding to our cutting responsibility come 2022. I mean, I don't know where we would put it. But we could say, here's $70,000. You decide however you wish to do it. Here's an additional $70,000 willing to go to. I don't know what line item we put it in. And then he's the elected office holder. Then, we use the authority of the elected office holder. See, here it is. You figure it out how you'd like to move the deck chairs around, but we'll agree to go up to a certain amount. That's a possibility, maybe. And then it gives Gary the discretion as an elected official to. I just think $165,000. Knowing we got to cut, it's just too much from my perspective. But again, I'm one of three. But I understand the need, particularly for VOCA. But then you can decide, okay, can I do something with my victim advocate? Can I get another experience? I mean, that gives you some discretion, some autonomy. So I'd be willing to say, here's X amount and go for it. But again, you guys could say I'm both in favor of all of it, and then it doesn't matter.
It's hard to spend money we don't have, but I can understand the situation here. It's
And as I said,
sounds like to me.
you guys can do this. I can seriously look at restructuring, and I can't make up all the difference, but I can take a chunk out of it by eliminating a staff position that
At 120, 130. And him.
Well, just to clarify on VOCA, you said it takes 162,000 to run.
Yep.
And the grant is 55.
Yeah, that's VOCA. I'm sorry. There's an additional about 7,000. That is SVAA.
Okay, so it is. So you're asking for 100,000 total.
Yes.
And I forget what we put in this year. I mean, it's been running 32, 35, but I can't remember if we upped it this year.
Did. I would,
Just split it, say
I'd have to look at that too. Okay,
it's 160.
I want to say it was 58 is ringing a bell.
I'd have to look. So it might have been 58 this year. I'll see if I can find it real quick here.
What if we propose?
So that you know how much additional it is for the VOCA.
Split.
I need 160 total.
Right, we'll have to look at it
And VOCA alone at 7.
in order to get
I need
extra process.
I don't know anything about remedy.
And you won't know the full amount until he hires somebody either. Or he won't know.
Not only
Full
that,
amount.
but here's I'm just gonna float this balloon. What if you funded half of what we need for VOCA and we wait and see if the feds can get the movement they need to get a fix?
Because we won't know that until September. If the feds come up with something, 1st of October.
I know.
Yeah, so
Later, yeah.
it's hard.
I'm willing to go up to 90 and let you decide how and what to spend it, with the understanding that if VOCA comes through, we may take a VOCA portion back or figure it out.
Absolutely, you get back if they come up with a fix. I'm not trying to double dip.
I don't
No,
know. You
no.
got to watch out for Audrey.
Oh, yeah, there is that.
How much would that do for you at 90,000?
Toward VOCA?
No, just giving you 90,000 and say, Gary, you're the elected official, figure it out.
Additional.
So you'd have, if you want to
90,000.
cover all of VOCA, then you have another 20. If you want to do some with your victims advocates to save a little bit of hair, then you got an extra there. It's giving you a little more than VOCA, but not give, it's more than half of your request.
I guess it would have
Asking.
to, with a caveat that we may be back later next year if the feds don't come through with a fix.
I hear you, but just to maintain what you have, you're asking for an additional 70, right? We're already increasing our responsibility, knowing we have to go backward. We have to go backwards every year. We know that. We've already made a commitment to say, okay, we're going to cover that. We already are knowingly saying we got to come up with an additional 70,000. And as Stacy and Daryl will tell you, Cliff, that's a lot of money getting down to the chopping block time. I mean, we're looking for hundreds of dollars at that point. So we already know we're adding so I'm willing to say, not only am I willing to add 70, I'll go another 20 and let you figure it out as the elected official. So I guess I'll go up to 90.
I'll go up to 100.
But that won't be enough to hire a new attorney even, would it?
Potentially, he's got to get creative.
If we could hire a new attorney, granted, maybe we'll get somebody for 60. That would leave us 30 or 40, depending on what you decide to put into VOCA.
I don't know what a lawyer makes around here, but 60 seems very low. 6-year experience
It
attorney.
is. I mean, if you want anybody with experience, that's
Prosecuting attorneys tend to make lower
They
than
don't make what private sector attorneys.
private.
They also get the benefits, the pension. They don't, but yeah, I would say one of the reasons why we also did the wage scales, because Gary was saying that his attorneys were lower. We added an increased educational factor to give a little more money on that education side. We added a doctorate level point factor. So we heard him and also worked on that end, because that's what I was working on. So now if you have a PhD as a requirement for your job, so meaning if you're, again, I'll say a widget turner and you have a PhD, well, I'm sorry, that's great that you have a PhD, but we don't need a doctor to be a widget turner. But you have to be a lawyer certified to practice law in Ohio. So we've added that additional point factor in our wage scales.
So this year's calendar year budget, calendar year, not the grant years, was the $58,000. So for their $100,000 asked, that's an additional $42,000 for VOCA. And
I thought you said she needed another 70.
Well, you guys contributed more last year because the grant was also cut last year. So instead of the normal 30, it went up to.
I just had to look it up. Yep. So they need $42,000 for VOCA.
I thought they needed 70.
Additional.
Well, then I don't.
We were thinking 30 something. And I just looked it up and it was 58.
Yeah, don't forget, they cut last year.
And we stepped up to the 58, but now it's gonna be cut more.
42.
So 42,000 additional in 2022, but you may need some at the end of this year.
So, okay, let me,
Yeah.
are you gonna need anything at the end of this year?
For October,
I don't think
December.
Well,
Okay.
that's my
With
prediction.
that, I don't think, I wanted to at least make sure we had good VOCA coverage. I'm willing, so then their revised request would be about, they're gonna need about 145. Right?
For one attorney and the 42,000 for VOCA.
So I think if we go back to this 9,100, I feel like that is, and assuming that we put 42 of that to VOCA, that leaves
Well,
us.
I'm not going to 90 now that you don't need that much, but I'll go down to 70. So 70 is a half of 140. I'll go up to 75. You guys decide. I'm willing to go 75.
That only gives them $33,000 to additional salaries.
Gonna have to get creative.
Creative.
I'm gonna have to let somebody go. Yeah. I'm gonna have to let somebody go
We're giving,
which I'm willing to do.
well, maybe not. That's what I'm saying. This is what I like doing. Give the elected official an amount of money and then he or she figures it out. That's what the law says they're to do, right? Unless,
Well, I appreciate that, but I am coming to you guys hat in hand saying, here's my situation. I'm trying to put my cards on the table for you. You know, I know in the past I've done things that have been displeasing to you in the way I've spent my budget. I'm trying to
we still love you.
turn the corner on it
Well-
and say, okay, here's what I plan to do instead of doing it and telling you later. I'm trying to say, here's what I'm up against. Here's what I'm gonna try to do.
Are you convinced me? I'll go to 80. That's my final number.
Good thought, Daryl.
Somewhere between 80 and 90. If you want 80, I'll go that route. And if you want 90, we're out voting. So whichever.
To me, it sounds dire.
It's not good.
All right, I'll go to 85.
And here's the other thing.
Where are we gonna appropriate? Well, I guess we gotta take a vote, don't we?
Well, so what do you think 85 when you're saying 80, 85, 90? Technically, that's for the 2022
Right.
budget,
But
because we don't know what we need. So you don't,
they're gonna need to revise their mid-year request. So we'd have to say, okay, in your mid-year request.
but if you
Yeah.
hire somebody now,
Well, look, we're already in July.
no,
Keep-
when he turns in his revised budget, he'll put in what he thinks he's gonna need, and then you guys would go from there on how much additional that is and what you will approve for the 2022 budget. But he's got an idea what to work with, I guess, if you tell him 85 today, he has an idea of what to start working towards, I guess, so.
And the thing too is there's no guarantee I'll even find somebody. We struggled mightily trying to get
Well,
somebody this last time.
This
around.
gives you an opportunity to look at the deck chairs with your highly intelligent fiscal director and to come up with something. So I guess the question is, you'll need to know when you'd hire, but then we'd have to give something for this year then. Jeez.
If he can find somebody.
If I find somebody, I'll let you be the first to know that I even found somebody. And obviously, if I can't find anybody, I'm not going to spend the money.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you agree to hire someone, let's say for VOCA, right?
Well, once he knows, if he goes to find
So
something,
here, let's do it this way. This appropriation will be for 2022. If you hire someone at the end of 2021, or you come up with a plan, here's my plan, here's going to be the additional cost for this year, we can discuss it at that point in time. So I would say the motion would be for 85,000, you'd revise your mid-year request. for an additional $85,000, which I would say, does Voca, where do we transfer the money from Voca's to, Stacy?
How to transfer out.
So they don't have a specific transfer out line item. So where would we put it in their 2022 revised request?
And I'll put it in the transfer out line item.
Okay.
So they would only, so you think you're going with 85?
Well, I'm 85. I guess we can talk about it. You
So
okay?
if we put 42,000,
To go more, but again, I can't spend more than, I mean, as you know, our ask is greater than our revenue.
Well, get ready, Cliff. That's why I'm like, if you would go through
I haven't
the
been through a
process,
cycle of that
you
yet.
wouldn't even be going, geez, 85. When we're looking for hundreds of dollars, you're be going that 85,000.
but revenue also gets adjusted in October also, not by
Right.
that much,
Right.
but it gets adjusted also.
Oh, yeah. We'll be drinking pina coladas. We'll be so happy. We want to cut anything.
Sounds like a good start.
Let me see, if you say 85 and we account for the whole $42,000 for Voca, that leaves them $43,000 in their salary line item.
Which
Just-
doesn't go very far. I don't-
No, but
With some restructuring.
Well, with some
It might work.
restructuring, we can,
depending on what he finds and
Yeah,
how much.
for what it's worth. I just visited my son in Utah a couple weeks ago and he's a prosecuting attorney out there in Salt Lake County. Set his laptop down. I mean, every minute he had, he's working on cases. He had four trials the next day. It's just overworked. I don't know if that's
And he just started.
universally.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just started, but he said they all work weekends. They all work 13-hour days. It's
I'm gonna put additional $85,000 in the prosecutor's transfer out line item for 2022.
Well, it would be 42,000 for Voca and 43,000 for the
No,
prosecutor.
I just,
Because it all doesn't go to transfer out.
that's what I asked. I guess let me be clear. We just want to give Gary the money and let him come up with a plan now that he knows for 2022 how to rearrange the deck chairs. So I'll go back to my initial question, Stacy, is where would you want that additional to be placed in our 2022 budget?
I'd want to, at the moment, I'd want to put $42,000 in Voca and 43,000 in the prosecutor's salary line item.
With the knowledge that you guys can
Okay,
play. with.
revised accordingly.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes,
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
we're late.
Yeah, you're late.
Any questions from the news media? Okay. Thank you very much for coming over.
Yeah, Anita.
I'm sorry, I did have a couple of questions. I was a little slow on unmute.
Hang on, Gary.
Gary, wait.
Yeah, Gary, it's for you. You're the elected official. No.
What is VOCA and what's the problem with it?
VOCA is the Victims of Crime Fund. The problem with it is that it's funded through the federal government. Historically, that money comes from corporate fines that the federal prosecutors impose on corporations for various violations. What they've started doing is taking a lot of those prosecutions at that federal level and making them diversion cases and doing alternative dispositions and not collecting any fund. That has dried up the fund to the point where the money we get from the federal government to fund our victim advocates in our office has gone from 134,000 a year down to 55,000 a year. And we cannot run our program on that amount of money.
Okay. Other question I had, you were talking about caseloads going up. How much of that is crime actually increasing and how much of that was a backlog created by COVID?
Most of that is crime increasing. We have worked pretty much through the COVID backlog. These are just more uptick in the number of crimes that we're seeing and cases coming through our front door on a daily basis. There might be some small fraction of cleanup that we still are doing with COVID cases, but that's largely caught up.
You said something earlier about, the cause of the increased crime, something about juvenile supervision.
We're seeing,
What
more
did you mean
crimes,
by that?
more crimes committed by younger adults between the ages of 18 and 20, for example. It's our impression that some of these offenders are people we've seen in the juvenile system previously. Therefore, whatever is being done with them at the juvenile level is not working. It's not lowering their recidivism rates.
Now, are you saying that's a fault of the local juvenile system or the juvenile system in general?
Both.
Okay, those were all the questions I had.
He's the only one left, so.
All right. It's 11:41 and we will stand adjourned.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.